Welcome to the latest edition of Here's What We Know, the podcast of unexpected conversations. And I'm going to be honest with you. It's like, people ask you, do you have favorite children? And I'm like, well, it depends on the day, right? It depends on the day. Do I look forward to some of these podcasts more than I do others? Yeah. And I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. You've seen him on Two Broke Girls, Oleg the Cook, and we'll talk about that. But I want to get into the art of stand up
Mm.
because that's where I'm fascinated. It's Jonathan Kite. How are you, my friend?
Good, buddy. We were just talking off mic about how when we agreed to when we were like, let's set this up, Alaska was not yet a state. And we're here, and so is Alaska. And so I come with the Alaskan people, and we're glad to be here. And also when you started the thing, you were like, I look forward to some of these more than others. This is not one of those. And it could have gone a lot of ways, buddy. And
Well, listen, I'm just talking about my own anecdotal experiences. For me, I'm looking forward to it. For you, I can see you sit back and roll your eyes and go, "Yeah."
you know what's funny is we for us, we never know. I mean, obviously, like I'm glad to be here and it's so great to see you again. We never know, like, things that we think will go great. Like, I've been on shows, right? I did a nationally syndicated talk show, and it went great for me, but terrible for them. And the thing is, they asked me off mic, um, do a bunch of impressions. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever you want. I'll do whoever, it doesn't matter. And then they're like, and the hosts will try to guess the impressions. And when I tell you, the audience is yelling at everything out, all the producers, they have never, it's like right before the segment, they both had a lobotomy. And it was crazy because they had to edit it because I was not taking the piss out of them, but I was sort of poking fun and having fun with them not knowing who any of these people were. And so they had to re-edit it for television. And so it was so funny and I thought that segment went great and they did not, but you never know. So that's what I'm saying. So I just come into every one of these is like, I hope it goes great.
I know it's going to go great. I never doubt it because I'm just fascinated by the story. And as you tell that story, you can't say names, but I sure hope Jenna Bush Hager recognized her father. Anyway, let me let me just throw that out there. Uh, have you found this in TV? And I just literally, I've got friends of mine who are in TV, and they say that if you do morning television, that is almost an IQ test because you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you have no life and you really don't know anything that's going on because your job is to just show up with your hair done.
Which I haven't done today. So I didn't realize that this was taking place as early as it was. It's 2 a.m. and I just got out of bed. You know what it is that it's hard for it's hard for them to make something interesting that early in the morning. I think like they always want us to do, when I would do radio tours,
Yeah.
they would always, it would be like 7 a.m. New York time. So 4 a.m. here. And they would go just do all of the loudest, I'm like waking up my neighbors. They want like, hey, good morning. What's up, lady? Good to be here. They're just trying to because they're trying to be the coffee for their listeners' ears. And so I felt like and then if you weren't telling jokes, there was always like, wow, I thought this guy was going to be funnier. And I was like, I don't know, dude, it's 4 a.m. right now. Like, and then we're doing 30 of I swear to you, I think I did 3 hours or a few times for sweeps week and everything. So there's hit or miss and you never know like what, or like when they get in there and they just start asking me about the girls on Two Broke Girls. They just start asking me sexual questions about them at like 4 a.m. Not even the time should matter on that, obviously, anyway, but I'm just like, what is happening right now?
I
So
tell you,
making
half
it
of
real south.
half of the industry, some of the worst. And I always love having comedians on in the morning. And I used to, when we were doing terrestrial radio, I loved it, and I never had any preconceived notions. But I also knew that it was like, listen, this is way early for you. And I don't want to be a jerk and I want to enjoy what you do. I'm shocked by the guys who refuse to laugh because they think it makes them sound cool. And I was always like, what a what an asshat.
Well,
right?
also, I think that there's a lot of and I'm not speaking for, anyone individually. I can't think of anyone that this fails, but you can tell that they were like they wanted to do comedy. And so that they didn't, it's sort of this idea of like, I can do what you're doing, that you're not that funny. You know what's interesting though is, and I say this as somebody who probably like it gets asked to do like a card trick, an impression or whatever.
Mhm.
Like we do it as bait to get people to come out to the shows.
Yeah.
So, to agree to do press and then to not do something that might get people in, I think my thing is if people don't want to do the press, they shouldn't do it, personally. But if I'm going to do it, I understand that it's part for the course to do the impressions because even though I don't even do a lot of impressions in my shows, I do some. So then people are kind of going, oh, maybe, but that's such an easy thing to just kind of, like speed dating. You can just do one, and then just move on to the next one.
Well, you know what I used to do, and what I would try to do is I would try to look up your old work. If you're coming in studio, I'd try to look
Mhm,
up your old work, and I
mhm.
would try to set the bit up so you could do an old bit, right? Because I want you to use the new stuff that you're doing. I want you to save
Yeah,
that for the crowd. So
that's nice of you.
I would try to do it, find an old bit that I knew you knew, right? Because I could tell that it was one of those things that you had crafted and worked on,
Yeah.
but it was 4 years ago, and the odds of you having it in a set are very small. And so I try to set you up for that bit.
I'm like, Gary, I'm opening with it.
I did this one time. I
Yeah.
had Norm Macdonald. Let me tell you my Norm Macdonald story.
No, no, no.
So I had Norm Macdonald come in, and
Yeah.
I was a big fan. I found Norm Macdonald back in the late 70s when nobody knew who the hell he was, right?
Wow.
I saw him at a comedy club in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I thought he was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. And they had called me up a few years ago. This was like about a year and a half before he died. And they said, "Hey, would you like to have Norm Macdonald in studio?"
Wow.
Would I ever? Would I ever? And so
Unbelievable.
and so he comes in, and I'm thinking, I am going to bring up the bit that I remember him doing back in the late 70s and 80s about wiener dogs. And I know he can just laugh, but I know he doesn't do this break bit anymore. He gets it. I'm like, Norm, I'm so glad you did there. And he goes, yeah, 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 great, great, great to be here. I'm like, man, how's your wiener dog? Yeah, yeah, great to be here. Yeah, yeah. So how's the tour going? Yeah, 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 great. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he did this for 3 minutes, and that's all he would do. And I finally said, "Hey, Norm Macdonald, tonight, improv, have fun." And he left. I found out months later that he did that to every radio station he went into because he thought it was performance art.
Yeah,
So at
I was
the
gonna
time,
say
I was
he's so
impressed. Like,
intentional
"Oh, I'm
about that
honored."
stuff. Yeah. I mean, I don't also the thing about him is my personal opinion of him is that if people know that he's there, they're gonna go see him. There's no amount of press that's gonna be like, "Oh, who is this guy?" Just because he's not maybe because of his age, and even to the casual observer, because of Saturday Night Live and Dirty Work and all that stuff, it's like he was so famous even for a guy that didn't tour all that often. Like he definitely toured, but not like Jim Gaffigan or some of these other guys. And so it's like you just either know him or you don't. And if you know him, you like him. I mean, if you're like, if so I think for a guy like him, it's just sort of like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like it doesn't, whatever he says, it doesn't matter. It's like Benicio del Toro from The Usual Suspects when he mumbled, and then later they asked, why did you mumble? And he goes, because I realized that my function in the script was it didn't matter what I said.
That's insightful. That's it. And see, and like I said, I found out later, Norm thought of it as performance art.
Legend.
And so he did it to everybody.
I will
And
be
he,
doing that as well.
I, yeah, how are you, Jonathan?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I will be
When
doing yeah, you know what? I never try to take the piss out of somebody, because I'll tell you, I did this one time. Don't you love going on having people on your show that talk about other shows? But, I did Arsenio Hall, and, I pitched an idea to him or his team, because I love Arsenio, but he was trying to do a new version of himself. Now he and I are very friendly people, like, we perform together a lot. He's the sweetest dude, and, but I hadn't met him. Yeah, and they were like, he's doing the re version of his new show, like the re-up, and he didn't want to do this anymore. He was trying
Mhm.
to, because he thought it was kind of a shticky thing. Whereas now I feel like anybody would be lucky to have something that's instantly that recognizable. Anyway, so I wanted to do a character where I came on, you know how like Matt Damon always gets bumped from doing Jimmy Kimmel,
Jimmy Kimmel.
or
Yeah.
they have, Lindsey Buckingham from What Up With That on SNL. So I wanted to be a guy who was supposed to be on in 1988, which would have made me like, 10 years old or whatever, or 9 years old, that who was supposed to do the show, but kept getting bumped. And then he went off the air. So I was going to come on as a child star, all grown up, dressed in the 80s gear, but bitter, and only wanting to talk about what I wanted to talk about in the 1980s. And so I had a bag, I had a brick phone, I had a leather jacket, I had like this like 2 Live Crew. No, that's probably like, I don't know what it was, maybe a Color Me
Run
Back.
DMC.
Yeah, like something. I can't remember. I had pumps on, acid wash jeans, and I was like, and I had this whole list of things for him to like talk about, and me being like, dude, OJ Simpson's the best. I can't wait, I can't wait to like just all this stuff, right? And this new show, Saved by the Bell, whatever it was. And then a guy had come on the week before and did a thing called Archerio Paul, which was Paul Scheer, great comic,
Mm.
and he felt like it was making fun of him, which it wasn't. I mean, I don't know Paul, but I mean, I've seen him as a comedian. He's a great guy, and it seems like it's an homage. It does not seem like it's making fun of him, but he was so worried that we were making fun of him, so he thought like another guy coming in and doing that. So then I was like, then 24 hours ahead of time, I'm going, well, what do I do? So I wore a white suit and got a huge fur hat. And I came on as a Ukrainian talk show host who like did the bit as this Ukrainian talk show host the whole time. And I brought with him meat. I brought him a gift of meat and vodka. And he, but you could tell for the first, like when he met me backstage, he was like, what, but there really is like, you don't know if somebody is sort of their brand like Norm, you never know. Cause I was trying to do like something interesting and new every time I went on a show. And I think that a lot of hosts were just sort of like people had tried it before and they thought, this is just my opinion and what I've sort of heard from others, in that they were looking bad, that they were like sort of being made fun of, that they were using their platform to sort of do. Whereas like, but Letterman used to do it all the time. He used to have on like Chris Elliott come on and do Jay Leno. I feel like it used to be very common. And then I think that the hosts were like they were like, I don't want to be made an ass of.
Well, and you saw, and I know the world of comedy, you saw where Jay Leno came on and said, when he let Jimmy Kimmel come out and just rip him, that he felt like I shouldn't have done that, but in the long run, it just ended up being what it is, because there is a jealousy, there is a bitterness that exists in all forms of entertainment.
Yeah.
But I think when somebody's trying to bring you a new idea like that, okay, I'm a Ukrainian talk show host. Here's some beef. Here's some vodka. I'm all in. I'm all in on that.
The audience, I sang a song that I sang called The Wolf Is My Mother. And I just started singing it. And they called me after, they're like, do we have to clear that with somebody? And I'm like, clear that? I just made that up. And I was like, the wolf is my mother. And I was just like singing for the audience to be like, this, I have a song that's very big in Ukraine. And then they'd be like, no, we don't know the song. And I go, you definitely know this song. Like I was like a little bit offended. And I'm like, let me sing a little bit. You'll sing the chorus. And I started singing it. And the audience, they had no idea what was happening. And when I brought him the meat, I told him, I would go, this is how you have it. And he's like, from a butcher? I'm like, no, my brother, he owns where you get meat from. And then he's like, a butcher. And I go, no, a petting zoo. And then I like gave, and he just didn't know what, but he could tell that I was protecting him. Because I
Yeah.
think he was feeling a little bit self-conscious, trying to come back in after a long time. And being a talk show host is hard, man. It's hard.
I mean, it turns you weird. How many talk show hosts have we seen turn weird? Ellen, and again, you don't have to comment on this. Ellen turned weird. Kelly Clarkson is getting ready to walk away from it, and they're paying her tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, I also think like I give the credit. I don't know that I could show up like the news, right? We were saying the amount of hours that they have to spend there, it's like they don't really have any vacation. Or if they do, it's like you have FOMO because it's like at least Saturday Night Live has agreed we're going to take a break this summer like they do every year. If something happens with Trump or Biden or whoever, we'll talk about it in the fall. But like these people, what keeps people watching is the relevancy factor. Who do they have on? What's going on? What's fun? And so it feels like it's like a soap opera. When you miss a day, people turn other places. And so I'm like, I mean, it's sort of like, it's gotta be like golden handcuffs.
That's a very good point. And plus you're so competitive for the guest, right?
You
I
have
mean,
to.
I remember that in the Tonight Show back in the day. If you went on Dick Cavett or went on, Lord forbid, Joan Rivers, you
Sure.
were banned from the Tonight Show.
Well, that's so we were when I think it was Rachel Ray first, or was it the Today Show? I was in New York doing press, and they were like, "You're going to do these shows back to back," and I had to do impressions on both of them, and I was like, "Cool." And lovely people at both places, but I do the one. Let's just say Rachel Ray. I don't know if this is true, but I go on Rachel Ray. I do the impressions, and they oh no, it was the Today Show, and the segment was very long. And then the publicist calls me up afterwards and she goes, "So Rachel Ray's show is saying that you need to do all new impressions for them tomorrow." And I'm going, "Wait, what?" "Or they won't have you on." And I said, "Wait, but," and this is my publicist. I go, "But you booked this thing. You knew that I was going to be doing multiple back to backs, and you knew that they were going to ask me for impression. It wasn't my publicist's fault." But the fact that they would say you cannot have any overlap, and I just did a ton of impressions on that first show, that wasn't part of the deal. And then I'm sitting there going, okay, so I'm frantically trying to and they go, "You have to have a list to us by the end of the day." And then they have to look at the list to see if they wanted those impressions.
Wow.
It was great. It was very stressful.
Are you at the stage of your career where you go, I've been on the Today Show. If I need to pick between Rachel Ray and the Today Show, I'm going to take the Today Show.
Well, I mean, it was one of those things where I was just doing so much press in New York. I don't live out there. I've worked out there, but when you go out there, you get to do a bunch of fun stuff that you would never, not that you wouldn't do. I could go to New York or Chicago or wherever and do press, but when you want to promote the show, it's sort of a unique opportunity where people are really, especially a show like ours, where people were really excited about it. And it's cool to help be a part of generating the buzz, because once people think, like, it's like a comedian, right? Once you do the show, and especially now, it's harder than ever. There's a million things coming out every day. So you have to get out there and let people know, just like with comedy, you have a million options this weekend. "Hey, I'm in town at Roosters," right? And you really have to sort of, because people forget, and that there's not a frequency, there's not a normalcy with which things are released now. So for us, even our show that did so well, you'd have to be like, "Hey, we're coming back we'll be premiering next week. It's really exciting. Kim Kardashian's on." It's like it was a very fun thing, and the fact that people wanted, because we've all done a lot of stuff where we think it's big, but it didn't really move the needle.
Mhm.
And so you just want to be a part, you're just, to be honest, I was just grateful that I was getting these opportunities to do those shows.
When did you fall in love with comedy? I mean, because I can remember for myself,
Yeah.
7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and
Yeah.
I'm older than you, but I remember seeing Bob Newhart and
Sure.
Bill Dana doing Jose Jimenez,
Yeah.
as an astronaut, and my buddies and I, we would save up our money to go buy whenever Richard Pryor would release an album. And
Yeah.
we would said, here are these 3 little white boys in Southern Alabama, could not wait to spend an hour and 10 minutes with Richard Pryor
Oh,
and
yeah.
memorize that album.
Of course. Mine was probably when I was a kid, I probably saw like Abbott and Costello, because my father loves classic films, or the Marx Brothers or the Three Stooges. And it must have clicked for me. It didn't really click. I was an artist for a long time, in terms of practical artist. I would draw. And I wanted to be an animator for Disney, like for most of my childhood. But there was probably a moment where I never thought I would have a real job. Like just only because of when I found out that people like that also made the same money, not the same, but you could also use that to make money the way doctors or lawyers or whatever. I think that sort of blew my mind. And I thought, how do I do that? And I remember I got to junior high after doing, and we started doing plays. And I remember thinking, like, this is something that I think, not that I could see myself doing for the rest of my life, because I felt like, and a lot of that other stuff, I couldn't see myself. I've worked in restaurants, I've worked in cubicles, I worked in a wood shop. Like I've worked jobs, but I always, um, my brain was always somewhere else. And I thought, at least with this, when I was a kid, and I imagine when I saw Wizard of Oz was probably the first time ever when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And I just thought that was the greatest thing that I ever saw. And I remember thinking, like, wow, these are people though. They're just like us, and they're doing this thing for a living. Well, I mean, maybe I could do that.
I never even thought it was possible. I grew up in South Alabama,
Yeah,
and everybody I knew hated their jobs. I
yeah,
did not know anybody who loved what they did for a living. So I grew up subconsciously thinking you could not do anything fun for a living.
you're so right.
And I never even thought I didn't thought a career in radio or any kind of entertainment was even possible. And if it was you had to be way above the stratosphere where I was at for it to ever happen.
Well,
And
I would see people on TV as the growth of media companies expanded. I would see people like Jim Carrey or John Lithgow or Michael Keaton or Jamie Foxx. And I remember thinking, whoa. I remember seeing a guy like Jim and being like, not that I'm the same, but I remember thinking, like, wow, this guy, there's like something about him. And same with Lithgow, that I remember thinking, like, I'm not them, but there. It's like when another dog sees a dog at a dog park. That, like, there's different things around me that I can relate to and exist with, but not quite like that thing that I'm looking at. And I'm going, and as a very young age, Tom Hanks was a big one too. When I saw Tom Hanks in The Burbs, I just remember thinking, whoa, there is something about this guy. And it was that more than like Saving Private Ryan or like, I saw Philadelphia. I saw everything that he did in the theater. Even when I was a little boy, I saw Big, I saw The Burbs, I saw all those things. But seeing him in Splash or Bachelor Party, I remember thinking, God, there's something like this guy, something. And
I
so,
think I think Tom Hanks' superpower is his earnestness,
you know what he
right?
is? He's the ordinary man in extraordinary situations. And so it's like he's like, what would you be if you got caught on a desert island? He's like sort of the best version of the everyman.
And it's what I'm saying with Ernest, and he never stops being decent. I remember he played an assassin of a gangster. Remember in the movie with the was it News or something like that, where
Uh,
he,
News of
he
the World.
played
No, no, it
News
was Road to Perdition.
Road to Perdition, right? And so this is a guy with no redeeming qualities, yet with Tom Hanks, he's a pretty damn decent man.
Well, that's why. I think that's why he was cast, because you would like him no matter what. So, I think that was for me, like seeing someone like that. It really, like, it struck a chord with me. And I thought, I don't know what my future is in this, but I'd love to go take a shot at it. And so that's it came out here.
It's so funny that you mentioned because I'd written myself some notes, and one of the things I wrote that you think, "You remind me of the energy of Jim Carrey." Not the act,
Mm.
but the energy, and I
Oh,
have not seen that in a while
thank you.
because you bring that same, "Here we go, and join with me. I don't care if you're with me or not, but we're still going,"
Yeah.
right? And I watch you then and I'd go what through all your videos and I'm like, "Man, you can't fake that." Because after a while you get tired. That's
It's
either who you are or it's not who you are.
for
And
sure.
you have I can see it's funny that you brought up Jim Carrey because that's who I saw. I'm like, "Man, Jonathan's got that Jim Carrey energy and it's rare when you see it."
Thank you. Also Robin Williams. When I saw the genie in Aladdin, I remember thinking like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Just that sort of, I like that sort of presence. I think with Jim, there's just like there's a joy in what he's doing.
Mhm.
And you can tell that he really has put a lot of thought into it. And I think that he's just so good at it that it looks effortless, which is what it should. But I really appreciate guys like that. I appreciate these clowns that are willing to put it all on the line. And, for God's sakes, I look like a Q-tip that fell into the bottom of your car right now. I'm trying to clean out the ears of a dog at the vet.
I loved it. I love it because with Jim Carrey, right, one of the reasons you like Jim Carrey is because, like Jim Carrey, he wants you to hear every word he was saying. Robin Williams was so manic. If you got every eighth word, he was kind of okay with it.
Yep, I agree. It wouldn't have changed the story.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And
that's it. There's a power in that. Entertainers, Martin Short, Pablo Francisco. Like I really enjoy. I think that for me, when I looked at what made me happy as a kid, we went to the movies all the time. I didn't watch a lot of TV. I watched The Simpsons and In Living Color. And then when I was in my sort of my high school years, and then before that, I watched Twilight Zone, Golden Girls, and Nick at Night. So there's a lot of and I just thought what I realized is that growing up in the Midwest before the internet, there is such a power to being an entertainer that you can truly make a difference. Not the way that like a teacher or a lawyer or I'm a lawyer. Jesus Christ. Sorry about that. We got to delete that. I might as well have said Hitler. No, but a doctor, doctor. That was hold on, guys. We'll go again. Doctor, we'll put it in, fix it in post. But that you could see how happy it would make people. And I think about as life gets harder, as for me, as the world, my experiences through my own eyes. So as I get older and life gets harder, I think about, I really do want to be there, like when I do stand up, to be a good time, because that's a lot of people's night off. It's like the date night. It's their a first time being at a comedy show. And I really, even when the audience is light, or even if the energy is low, I'm always going to give it 110% because I'm performing for the people that are there, not for the people that aren't. And so I always admired that I never felt like in my heroes, I could tell that it felt like they were performing to the best of their ability just because they loved it, and for that person in the front row who was enjoying it. And to me, I think that's so important, just because it's hard. Life is up and down for a lot of people. We have our own stuff going on. And I just think if you can give someone a break for a minute, I think that's why social media is so popular, right? It's sort of like the devil. But it's the idea that like you just need a break sometimes.
well, to get away from the realities of life, you said it very well. And when somebody can come in and make you think of something and have it be so relatable. I love to, and right now on social media, you guys post your crowd work because you're not using up your bits, right? But you post crowd work, and I love your crowd work. And I'm telling you, the what is your ick was
Oh,
genius. I mean,
thank
and
you.
it's like because everybody does have an ick, even if they don't realize they have an ick. And then you're waiting for everybody to do this, this soul bearing thing and stuff. And then your ick was just so, damn it. He outsmarted me again.
Well, no, I appreciate it. I think it was the idea that everybody, with crowd work, it's funny now because it's become a real thing where I perform as much as I can, but it's unless I'm doing it about the city, or I need to give myself those questions for those tent poles, because I enjoy it, but I almost enjoy doing material more because like it's sort of my way to write my own stuff. Whereas I'm doing film and television, I'm saying somebody else's lines. So I like to see it also helps me to maintain a level of writing. Whereas I noticed Whitney Cummings, who was creator and EP of Two Broke Girls, one of the two EPs, she was awesome when giving me advice about stand up when I first started. She's like, don't do crowd work. She's like, because you will just do an hour of crowd work and it won't help your writing. And so, because I started much later in life. And so I took that to heart. I always have it in the back, but I always think about crowd work to me, it can be so general, or it can be like, what's your ick? So if I have a new one, what's your job? Because I talk about how we as a comedians, we get applause at our jobs, which is like a nice feeling. And then I'm like, what other jobs could we applaud at? And then I go around the room and ask people. So I feel like if that's entertaining for me, it'll be entertaining for the audience. Because I never wanted to do stuff just for clips, right? Because it feels like that's what was driving the narrative, at least in the public space of stand-up comedy. It's like, well, can I make this a viral clip? Can I shoot? I saw people do crowd work for 20 minutes, cut it down to a 2-minute clip, but it took up a third of the show. And so I thought that doesn't sound fun to me. And I don't know if it's fun for the audience. I wasn't there. I mean, I was there, but I don't know what was going on in their heads. So I wonder, for me, I go, what is interesting for me? And hopefully, because they paid to see what I think is funny, I hopefully they'll think it's funny too.
I enjoy crowd work when you think of it as an appetizer, right?
Exa-
Where it's a little taste of, hey, I acknowledge you, the crowd. I have a second with you, but now I'm going to tell you, because I want to see how your brain works,
Okay.
right? I mean, as I said, you go back to Richard Pryor. He didn't do crowd work. Bob Newhart didn't do crowd work,
No, no.
and that you came to watch their genius.
Yeah,
You came to experience the world in the way they see it.
of course. I agree with you 100%. And it's exciting, and the world is changing so much. It's like I have this Trump thing that I'm doing, but like now I'm doing a show tonight. And I was like, do I change the bit? Like, because so much is going on with him right now that, and him and Elon, that I'm like, oh my God, do I? And so for me, I'd rather like workshop that out, just because you want to give people hits, right? You want people to still get big laughs in there. So I think like the crowd work, I tend to not do crowd work and work on new bits, because I feel like that because by the way, people post the crowd work clips that do well. A ton of them do not do well.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
you will see people do crowd work at a stand-up club, and you're like, bro, this is bombing. I was like, I didn't realize that this club was in Iran. It's bombing so hard, because I mean, it is brutal. And you're like, I bet you're not going to post this one, bucko. And if you do, you're going to add a lot of laughter in. Like, we were making that joke about how, like, because it's a produced reality, right? So you and I are in like little boxes right now. So like
Uh,
they would just show this version. There's like no one in the crowd. I'm like, hey, what's up, guys? Because you don't want to like pull out a little bit to see no one there. And so, and then they add a bunch of laughter. That was a big thing for a long time, right? Where people would perform in a theater. They would like rent out a comedy club, and they would just do jokes to no one, and they would add in laughter. They would create their own fake clips.
so if you're wondering if AI was here long before AI was here, yes, it was.
Well, that's the thing. People were like, "Oh, isn't it weird that you guys?" I go, "Bro, we are dealing with AI. We've been dealing with it for forever, because you had to keep editing, and you have to produce that clip and make it like edit, jump, 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 jump. It's You never just see like a crowd work clip of a guy just talking.
Yeah.
Almost never.
I want to ask you this question. But listen, you can find Jonathan talk about Two Broke Girls a lot of places,
Yeah,
but I'm not as interested in that, because I told you I love talking about the craft of what you do. I really do. That's I just didn't I nerd the hell out on that.
yeah.
But I would love to ask what it's like when you get the role. What's that day like when you go and you've gone through all the auditions, you've gone through all this stuff, and you've never had an opportunity like this? The day you got the role, tell me about that day. I want to tell you why I am all in on Bison Junk. First and foremost, they are a full-service, eco-friendly junk removal company, but with this difference, they focus on recycling and donating usable goods. Their customer service sets them apart, and they pride themselves on their integrity. They'll show up when they say they will, and they'll do what they promise. If you have hard-to-remove items like hot tubs or large furniture, they figure it out so you don't have to. They want to be who you always come back to when it's time to declutter and organize your home or business. They're worth every penny at bisonjunk.com.
There's a guy named well, I auditioned for the part on a lark, because my friend was a casting director, and she was like, "Hey, Michael Patrick King, who did Sex and the City, is doing a new sitcom with Kat Dennings on CBS called Two Broke Girls." I said, "Oh, that sounds really fun." She goes, "There's not a part for you, but there's a Russian, a 50-year-old Russian guy. Why don't you come in and just meet Whitney and Michael?" I'm like, "Whatever." So I dress like the part, I put the hairnet on. I come in, I do the bit. They're very kind. They're, "Oh, this is fun." I go, "Oh, that was fun. Hopefully I'll get on the show in like, a year or so. It sounds like a hit." Get called back, and I'm in a room with a few other people, but not a lot of other people. Like, I actually don't remember who else was there from my heart. But then you sort of meet everybody. I met, and then what had happened was we got to another part, and it was the day I think that Les Moonves had to fire Charlie Sheen from Two and a Half Men. So he wasn't even at the audition when we went to the final thing. So I remember that day very clearly because we were at CBS, and we're meeting everybody, and it was me and one other guy, very cool dude, short British guy, bald, sort of like Jason Statham looking guy. Do you know what I mean? And he was like, and he would
Who else
do,
does a Jason Statham outside of you? You're
and
amazing.
he was like, but he was doing the Russian as well or whatever. And he was a bulldog of a dude, like jacked, and he was probably like 5'2" or something, or 5'4". And then I didn't hear anything. And then I found out because I had the same agent at the time as Matthew Moy, who was Han Lee. He booked it. And I was like, awesome. I met Matt at the audition. What a super sweetheart. Now one of my best friends. And I was like, this is really cool. And then I go, well, so they haven't decided on Oleg? And they're like, well, Les wasn't there. And because I was sort of unknown at that point, even though I had done like a sitcom for Fox with Jamie Foxx the year before, they didn't really know me and they weren't really sure. And so what they were going to do was they were going to send him the tape, and he was going to give a gladiator thumbs up or thumbs down. And if they didn't choose me, they were going to start all over again because they didn't like any of the other options. And I was like, wow, okay. So they go, you'll get a call sometime, today or whatever, the next day, I don't remember. And if the casting director calls, you got it. And if the agent calls, you didn't get it. And I was like, okay. So I went out with my day. A friend of mine, John, who'd been one of my biggest supporters in my life, I thought he had passed away. He had a lot of medical problems. He was like a good, like maybe 10, no, 20 years older than me. And, he had trouble walking, and he was a little bit overweight. So I knew that he had a lot of pressure problems with his joints. Hits me up out of the blue a couple days before. And he was like, hey, and I thought, man, I thought you had passed away. I was like,
Awkward.
awkward. I go, "Well, man, I never got a call from a ghost before." So I go, where are you? He's like, I'm here. I had to leave because I was having money issues and I had to go get a job over here. And this is before Instagram or any of that other shit. So I go, why don't we go have lunch? My treat. I'll take you. I saw him. We hang out. He's like catching up. This was a guy who believed in me before anybody believed in me. He's like, he goes, do you know Peter Bogdanovich? He's like, you're one of those guys. You're going to be one of those guys. I was like, oh, thanks, man. And I get a call from my agent when I'm there. And I go, you know what? I'm going to take this. I got to go outside. And I knew it was the bad call because it was from the agent. So I get on the phone and I'm like, hey, buddy, what's up? And he goes, hey, hey, it's, your agent. I go, hey, man. And I'm going, and he goes, hold on one second. I got to patch in the casting director. And then she goes, hey, Jonathan. And she had cast me on Jamie Foxx's show the year before. So this is the second pilot I booked with her in a row. And she's like, you did it. You got the part. And I remember just looking up to the sky and being like, I can't believe it. Because this was like, obviously network shows are still big now. I'm not saying it, but this was like when they were huge. And it was like, I didn't really know anybody else on the show. I mean, I knew Matt. I met Garrett Morris at the audition. I obviously knew Kat as the huge movie star. I heard Beth was amazing. Jennifer hadn't joined yet. And I just remember calling my mom and being like, I booked that pilot. I can't believe it, but I'm going to be on a CBS pilot. And it was just like, she was the first person I called. I will never forget that moment. I stood in the street and just like looked up to the heavens and my fists were raised. And I just couldn't believe it.
That I mean, think about it. Think about the juxtaposition. You're having lunch with someone you thought was dead, and
Yeah.
you get the call that you thought was death to the role, and both times, Jesus is calling Lazarus out of the cave. Both times,
I was
right?
gonna say, dude, Lazarus Man. I mean, it's like, and I'll tell you the year before, actually, when I was on the Jamie Foxx thing, the show didn't want me. Fox Network did not like. They were just like, we don't think he's the guy. And Jamie, who I didn't know at that time, he stuck up for me, and he was like, "This is the guy. I'm telling you." He's like, "This is." He goes, "I've done this before. That's the guy that we need on the show." And I didn't know that, and so I didn't get it. Went out, got blackout drunk, but I woke up the next day feeling actually maybe one of the most calm, best moments I've ever felt in my life. Like and I was in the eye of the storm, but I felt amazing. And I was like, okay, I didn't get that. I'll do something else. It's fine. Got a call 3 days later on a Wednesday, and they were like, hey, can you do a Steven Seagal impression? And I was like, yeah, for sure. I couldn't. And then I learned Steven Seagal. And then when I got there, Jamie like pulled me aside and he was like, hey man, just so you know, like they don't want you here. He was very honest. And he was like, but I know you're the deal. He goes, I know you're the real deal. Just literally hang out with me. He's like, you'll get hired or whatever. It won't be like, you won't be a regular. Not now. He goes, but he was talking to me just like a guy. And then I just stood next to him and his buddies the whole time on the thing. And they just kept adding me in things, adding me in things. And then they wound up keeping me and one guy and getting rid of the rest of the cast. And then they reshot the pilot.
How's it? I mean, because pilots are weird, right? A lot of pilots get shot. Very few get picked up.
They should never, by the way, the people they got rid of are some of the most famous people in the industry today. It had nothing to do. They had good taste. Obviously, I think they should have
That's right.
me, but like they had good taste with those original people. They were amazing people. But like they just, it was just, they couldn't figure it. I mean, it didn't mesh. Like the people were amazing and the network was amazing, but like for whatever reason, it just didn't mesh.
Wow. When and you said you felt like you knew. I mean, because the Jamie Foxx show, how long did that last?
We get one season. And then when we were doing the party, actually the fun party, we were celebrating. There's all these like cool photos and stuff. And then they were talking about season 2, and I didn't tell anybody yet, even though it was public knowledge, back then. Now, deadline is announced on every second, and like you're posting about it, like, hey, what's up? But back then it was like 2010, 2011, like nobody, I don't even know Instagram was around. And the producers were talking to me, not Fox, the producers were talking to me about a season 2. And I was like, oh, no. Like I'm on a CBS show. We just got picked up. And so they didn't come back for a second season. I have no clue what anything was about. Because when I was done with that show, season 1, I was already on to season 2. I mean, I was already on my own thing. So I don't know. I have no idea what any of the conversations were around that at all.
What's it like having steady work? Because you and I both know, right? Especially in anything that involves being seen. It's one thing about doing what I do as in radio and stuff like that. We were nomadic, but not nomadic to the point of, as you know, what's SAG-AFTRA? What's the unemployment rate in SAG-AFTRA? It's tremendously high,
It's
isn't
like
it?
99. If to qualify for the insurance, I wonder if it's less than 1% of people in the union that qualify for it. I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating, but like I know it is like for people my age, like who have been out here a while, you're probably working if you're still here, but you got to think of like people in their 20s who are trying to get in the union. I mean, I remember when I got in the union, I got in the union when I was very young. Like I got in maybe 24 years old, 25 years old. So I'd only been out here a short time, but all of my friends, not a single one of them was in the union in their 20s.
What's it like to have steady work?
I mean, it's the luckiest thing I could think of. It's like, it's unbelievable. I mean, I'm so grateful. Like, especially now, it's like impossible. So I'm just very, very, very grateful.
Well, and let's be clear, you earned it. All right, right, yeah, you can people can sit back and say you luck. No, no.
A lot
You
of
are
people, you know what? So the tough thing is when about this business is the luck factor is nobody. It's a very tough thing to say because what does luck even mean? But you got to be luckier than most. That's even to like make it and so I'm lucky out of the people that were working that I'm working consistently, and I'm just grateful, and I just that's why I try to just keep plugging away and creating my own stuff, and I'm doing stand up. I'm doing a lot of other things that it's all like filtering in they're tributaries to this to my stream and and I'm just grateful that these opportunities keep coming my way and I just
well,
Mhm.
again, it boils down it comes back to your talent. I've told you before, you and I, when we talked, I loved your podcast. I thought the podcast was hilarious.
Dude, thanks, dude.
And as somebody who does podcasts, the hardest thing about doing a podcast is you have to continue to do it, right? With
That's what
one,
it was.
one
That's
after.
why I stopped doing it, not for any like negative reason. It was just one of these things where I was like, it was so fun, but also exhausting because it wasn't even the doing it. The doing it was fun. The people were fun. My co-host was the best. The guests were the best. It was the time around that it was an hour to drive to the studio and an hour to drive home. And because things were like, I mean, this is you and I live in different cities, but
Mhm.
it's like if you're living in LA, too much of LA was shut down for too long that I was like, I said in LA, I won't do a Zoom podcast. I was like, if you have the capability to go in person, doing Zoom, it just felt like it was so 2020. It didn't feel like whereas like obviously here and when I do other things that are outside of convenience, of course you do this. But for me to have a consistent show where I was doing it on Zoom and I'd have to take 3 hours out of every Monday, an hour there, an hour back, and an hour to record. I just realized I didn't have that time. I did not have 3 hours every Monday.
It is such a different energy when you're in person.
Well,
And so the next time you come back to Rooster Two Feathers, I was working on this yesterday. I'm assembling a portable podcast thing. So the
mm,
next time I want to go to where you're at because I want to be in the same room with you. Right?
oh,
Because you're exactly right. Because it is a different energy. It's what I used to love about having comedians come in because it was just that different energy. And we used to have everybody. And we had, my God, DL Hughley, Kevin Nealon. I mean, you name them, they came in. We
yeah,
had Tracy Morgan. That was a wild morning.
yeah,
Uh, you know, and there was that joyous energy
yeah.
that that they just bring, and especially when you I think the best thing I ever did is they knew how glad I was that they were there. And so they responded to it, right? They knew
Yeah.
I wasn't there trying to out cool them or out funny them. No, no, no. I can't do what you do. I cannot do it.
Well, you're setting them up for success, which is what the thing that people want. That's what they want. They want, that's why all the best, Conan, Johnny Carson, like they set people up to win.
I love the craft of what you do, right? And it is a complete craft of doing stand up comedy. You added into the impression thing, which I thought was cool, and I love the fact that you do some of the standards, but as you just said, Jason Statham, who does that? Who in the world does a Chris Hemsworth?
Well,
Which
you have
is
to do for
brilliant.
my generation, you have to do things that people haven't done before, just because for so long there was impressionists and comedians, right? They were separate. And there were hybrids like Robin Williams and Dana Carvey and Jamie Foxx and stuff. But it's like a lot of them were like Rich Little or Joe Alasky or Kevin Pollak, he is a comedian, but he's way more of a straight impressionist. And I just thought like, because the amount of people that were famous back then, like truly famous, um, people were limited in you didn't have like subcultures or like everybody knows who a TikTok star is now, where you can get enough people. Whereas back then it was like whoever was a movie star. So people did Pacino, De Niro, Christopher Walken, all these people. But for my age, it's like that we are the people that came before us did that. So who are the guys my age around that I could do? And so, and also you also don't run the risk of being like, oh, you're just doing an impression of that guy's impression. So I was like, yeah, who's big? So Chris Hemsworth, I love Chris Hemsworth. And so I was like, fuck it, let's do a Chris Hemsworth impression. Let's see. you know, what that sounds like. And then you got to make it for me. I want to have context with it. I don't want to just do like the voice. I want to be like, well, what can I say about this guy? That's positive. I don't take the piss out of people, you know, unless the politician. I'm very positive about the impressions that I do. And so I really like figuring it out. Is there an angle? Or I realize, oh, I'm like, oh, I can sort of do that guy. I wonder if there's like I wonder what bit I could do with him, you know, and then I try to figure it out.
You've got a great baritone, but it doesn't live in the deeper register, which I think gives your voice a great elasticity,
Yeah,
right?
I have a
So,
yeah.
and I love that. Have you ever had a chance to do the impression for the person you're impressing?
Well, I did for Vince Vaughn, and it was very nice. I got introduced to him in a very, very positive way through a mutual friend for a table read, and he knew that one of us did um, the impression. He had heard that somebody there like did an impression. And there was a bunch of people. And when we left, when the table read was over, it was at his company. A guy, we kind of went to the bathroom and spread apart and like had a drink or whatever. And when he left the room, his producing partner Peter Billingsley, you know, from you know
Oh,
every
yeah, the
story, Christmas story, you
Christmas
know,
Story movie, yeah.
he was like, do Vaughn. And as soon as he said that, Vince Vaughn came around the corner and he was like, and so I did it for him, and his face went white as a ghost. And I remember being like, dude, I do other guys. I'm not vocally stalking you. I'm like, I appreciate it. We're from Chicagoland, you know. And that was very bizarre. And then there was another time I had an opportunity at a party to meet Seth Rogen. And I had heard that Seth did not love my impression of him. But it comes from a place of love. So I didn't want to. So my friend was like, hey, did you know Seth? I'm like, no, I've never met him. They're like, does he know that you sound like him? I was like, he's doesn't want to be, he's like, you know, he's over there enjoying a drink or whatever he's doing. I'm like, I don't think he wants a stranger just to run up to him and just like start going into his face and doing the bit. So I abstained from that meet and greet. But you know, I mean, the amount of people that know Tom Hanks that are trying to get me to call Rita Wilson as Tom Hanks, I go, he doesn't want that. The Hanks Wilson family does not want that.
I will tell you because I've been doing radio here forever,
Yeah,
right? And
right.
I remember one of the coolest things ever. I was in an appearance one time, and this lady comes up and she goes, "You have to hear my daughter's impression of you." And I'm like, "You are absolutely right. I do." And this 12-year-old girl comes up and does me. And I thought it was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I loved every second of it. If
That's
I could have put her on a pedestal and took her everywhere I went to have her do me in front of everybody.
I love that. I mean, some of them, the problem is that, you know, obviously it was very flattering and cool. But when walk in, like, you know, there's a lot of stories where guys will just go up to him and just be like, "Hey, what's up? How are you?" You know, and or like, or you know, because I always say that you die the hero or you live long enough to become the villain.
Yeah.
And so, you know, people that are distinct, like Al Pacino, when Al Pacino was younger, he had a very high voice, right? He talked like this. And then over and over again, what do you got going? Right? You know, all that stuff. So then when people kept coming up to him being like, hey, I bet you don't know you sound like this. And so now he's doing it, but he's hearing people do him his whole life. Because even Christopher Walken, when he was younger, he didn't talk. I mean, he definitely had a high voice, but it wasn't like, wow. Yeah, there's so much poor because so you're now like doing an impression of an impression and they're hearing it. And Nicolas Cage, I think, is one of those guys who's like knows how people do impressions of him. And so he's making a conscious effort as he gets older to have a very specific older version of himself instead of doing an impression. So it's like you got to imagine that these guys are getting it. Christopher Walken must be getting it all the time. Every time someone sees him, they just in their head they go, "Do Chris."
How meta was it when Nicolas Cage played himself in that dang movie?
I know.
Right?
In Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Yeah, it was crazy.
It was that moment. That's the thing. I hope they do a show one day where they have like Chris Hemsworth. And my only disagreement with you is I think it was a lost art. I think we had a complete long generation that did not do impressions, right? Because I grew up with the Rich Littles and those guys and the Fred Travellina, right? And all those guys who did all the impressions. That's all they did was those impressions. And then it went away. Right? It was like outside of Jeff Dunham, nobody did ventriloquist work,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And but slowly but surely it starts coming back because it's entertaining. And I think there was
Yep.
that generation that did not do impressions. And so when you came and started doing it, and you were the first one that really caught my eye, that
Mm,
you were doing
you.
everybody and you were doing ones that I had never considered. I mean, everybody does everybody. Trump is now ubiquitous. Obama is ubiquitous.
Mm,
Everybody can do one. It's like when I was growing up, everybody did Nixon. Everybody did.
yeah.
And everybody did Chevy Chase's version of Gerald Ford.
Right.
Nobody really nailed Ford. But now you guys and I find you at the forefront of that,
I appreciate
finding those
that.
little things that make an impression work.
Well, I think that there's a you want to make it there's a fine line between cool and hacky. And I think that there were impressions, I think, in the 90s, but they looked at, and I'm sure people will look at my generation as hacky in the future. But there are certain things where it felt like the walk-in was being done to death in the 90s. Once like Kevin Pollak and Jay Moore and some of these other guys were doing it, then it felt like everyone was doing it. So it it felt like people were trying to get away from that. Because they're in the late 90s, like you don't really, I mean, you have Jimmy Fallon a little bit on SNL, you have Daryl Hammond, they were out there. Mad TV certainly had some great ones, and
Mhm.
Jim Carrey certainly was amazing in the 80s and 90s. But in terms of widespread, there wasn't really a place to showcase for it because they weren't doing it as stand up, right? Fallon, like he did it, but it was very it wasn't interwoven with the joke. It was like, here's the troll auditions, and then he would do like a John Travolta and Jerry Seinfeld or whatever. And so it was like you would be doing sketches that were blocked off as stand up. And I think that became very popular. But outside of stand up, there was no really place before in social media to showcase this stuff.
Good
And I
point.
think that is where, because Fallon has always done it, right? And he's been around for a very long time. Daryl Hammond, like I said, they had some really solid impressionists on Saturday Night Live, Mad TV, but it was really exclude. It was like if you weren't on a sketch show, where else would people? Because what are you going to do? A talk show? You like, I guess Kevin Spacey was sort of doing it, but like there weren't a lot of, it just wasn't a skill that I think that there were platforms to really announce it or highlight it. And now it feels like, oh, wow, okay, now there's places where people, if you just want to see impressions, you can literally go online and just see 100 of them.
Well, and having the courage to go up during your set and go, "Hey, I'm gonna do this," right?
Oh,
And that's courageous. To me, it is that
oh,
you jump out there and you go, "Hey, guys, we're gonna do Ray Romano right now,"
yeah,
right? And that's what I was saying is that anybody can do the classics, right? I mean, walk in and the people like that. What's cool is when you find the people, because even Daryl Hammond was doing a lot of the impressions of just people. Uh, but like when he did Sean Connery, that was kind of cool because nobody really did Sean Connery. And so when you throw out these people, Adam Driver, when you throw out Adam Driver, it's
yeah.
cool that you're finding people. Nobody has really done a great Tom Cruise outside of Ben Stiller. Nobody's really done a great Tom Cruise, right? And this is arguably the largest movie star
All
in the last 30 years.
maybe of all time, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Tom Cruise is very, no, he's very, very serious. Let me, I they asked him if they could pick a movie. I just saw Mission Impossible, and they're like, "What's your favorite movie?" And he goes, I can't pick. They're all my children. You know, because
It's
he's
smart.
become more. He's not like when he was, hi,
Well,
I'm
he's
about the
62
truth.
now.
What's up?
He's 62
Is he too? He's
and
very
still runs faster than most 30-year-olds.
most. He's very, very chill. Trying to be very, very chill guy.
You You have deli and I'm sorry if I nerded out on you too much because I
Oh,
know everybody sits back and expects you to just do ha-ha for an hour, but what I really wanted to do because I just so I enjoy your intellect because when I watch what you do, you have to be very smart to pull off what that's going on. The many levels that you're trying to pull it off on that you do. And like I said, I was more interested in finding out what it's like getting the job. You go on other podcasts and talk about what Kat Denning and those people are like. That's awesome. And great. And those are there. I
yeah.
just wanted to nerd out with you because I just love the way you work.
Thank you, man, and I appreciate. You really, it's a rare thing, I think, to I love, stand up, and I love the art of communication. And I think it's a rare, I mean, these are nice. Like this is, even though we're not in person, I love doing these because I love communicating, which is what I do stand up for. And I think that we have as we get more involved with AI and all this stuff, we communicate less, and there's
Mhm.
more substitution that replaces. And I think real conversation, which I look at stand-up comedy as a conversation, is it's not just a monologue. It's like, and that's certainly where crowd work plays into. And I just think, I'm glad that it still exists and it's really having this moment and it's booming because I think that we don't talk as much as we used to, and it feels nice to get that like human reaction, that human response in the room, and that you can't replicate it. And that's the thing about that's why I love doing Two Broke Girls is because I loved having a live audience there. And if something didn't work, boy, oh boy, do they let you know. And you were going, man, we got to change this joke because we sound like this is not. And I like that. And I like to be, I like the honesty of it all because at the end, you're just trying to connect with people. And if it doesn't connect, how can you, how do you fix that? But what's missing? And so I really like, I love stand up. I think stand ups are very smart people, but I think what the best skill that a stand up has to have is a clear cut communicator. Because like, how can they communicate the ideas that enough people will understand them?
I 100% agree. And I think as the world goes more and more towards AI, I mean, and it's there. I think what you just said, the human experience, I think we're not going to have any more 80-year-old presidents. You know why?
Yeah,
Because you're not going to believe anything that you see on a screen. That
100%.
they're going to have to be in 4 states in one day.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be anything a 79, 81-year-old
No,
person's
no, no, no.
going
This taught us something. I mean, Trump fell downstairs the other day, and you're just like, man, he's just not. What's funny is he just looked good by comparison. I mean, you know, and he hates escalators. He's like afraid of escalators. So I go, man, if the Dems wanted to win, they should have ran an escalator against him.
to And and that's the hard thing about doing crowd work. You can't count on the crowd being up on what's going on because the
No,
news changes so quickly.
I
I mean,
know.
right now, I'm not sure Trump and Elon are mad at each other anymore.
They're not. And that's the thing is I was writing a rom-com thing for them. And then they like broke up and I was like, it won't work. And now they're sort of back together. And I'm like, it's like it's like the new Love Island.
Okay, you went away. You went to play her. I didn't even see that. I didn't even see that coming. That was awesome.
And then they're just sort of like, yeah, it's the new reality show. And then the testimonial. I don't know. I was just, you think about it, like, yeah, it changes so fast or the Iran stuff. Oh, I did a show Saturday night, like maybe a half hour after the bombs, like they was announced. And I did a Trump material. And I think people just they did not respond to it. I mean, like I think they thought it was like amusing or whatever. But because they all knew that he had bombed Iran, not he, like the country on behalf of us. And so they were like, nah, we're just not interested in talking about Trump right now. And that's how quick it can change. Or
Wow.
maybe I sucked and I'm using the bomb
No, I think you're right.
as
I
a
think
cover.
this weekend.
But you guys would laugh at this if he didn't bomb the Middle East.
Exactly. Well, but that's how quick vibe changes now, right?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
it used to be months, weeks, years, and now 2 to 4 hours, you can have a
brutal,
vibe change.
brutal. I go, yeah, what is Trump doing right now? Nothing. All right, I got to do this joke quick before he does something else that'll disrupt you.
You have been so generous with your time. My friend, thank you. And
I'm so
again,
glad this worked out,
when you
dude. You're the best.
down, I literally want to do this in person because I just want to be around that energy that you have.
I mean, today it's low, but it's because I'm writing the next Anthony Bourdain. I'm doing those Bourdains,
Yeah.
and I've got to write one. I'm going to go to Bend, Oregon, to do the last blockbuster, and I usually write a lot of cynicism in them because I believe Anthony Bourdain, who's his birthday was yesterday, he's my one of my hero. He was cynical about the world, but he believed in humanity. And so I'm trying to write a very positive, charming, poetic one that he would not have taken the piss out of Blockbuster. He would have been like, thank you for the thing that stands above us all. And so it's been like, all I've been watching is like every video and reading every article about the last Blockbuster.
Yeah.
So you probably caught me in a little like a low energy mode, but I'm glad.
I caught you in the exact right energy mode that I wanted because I wanted to be able to just talk with you. And
This is
this
great.
has
I'm glad
been
this work. I
awesome.
know this is like we were playing tag back and forth a lot, so I'm glad that we made this happen. But I'll let you know. I mean, if next time especially when I'm up to play the Improv in San Jose or when I play Roosters again, that was a great club. That was really fun. We were there Mother's Day weekend, and it was great. I had a great time, and I appreciate you having me on to help promote that.